This means now 5 people have died at Disney in less than a month. The New York Post is reporting this latest death happened at the Saratoga Springs Resort. For perspective, it's right across the water from Disney Springs.
Walt Disney World has always sold itself as an escape from reality, a place where stress disappears, where families unplug, and where the outside world feels far away. For decades, people trusted that feeling without question. But in late 2024 and into 2025, something deeply unsettling pierced that illusion. Over the span of roughly 1 month, 5 people died on Disney World property. The stories appeared quietly at first, scattered across news outlets. But once placed side by side, they created a moment that forced people to pause. Not panic, not conspiracy, just pause. Because when tragedy clusters in a place built entirely around safety, fantasy, and control, people naturally begin asking uncomfortable questions. What's important to say immediately is that these deaths were not the result of ride malfunctions, park negligence, or some hidden disaster Disney was covering up. Each incident was different. Some involved medical emergencies, some involved mental health crises, some occurred inside resort hotels, not inside the parks themselves. But that distinction hasn't stopped the emotional response. For many longtime visitors, Disney World is not just a vacation destination. It's a place deeply tied to memory, childhood, and identity. When deaths occur there, especially in close succession, it feels more personal than if they happened in an anonymous city or airport. The first incident that gained widespread attention occurred in mid-October, when a 31-year-old woman was found dead at Disney's Contemporary Resort. Early rumors online spread quickly and inaccurately, suggesting involvement with the monorail system. Authorities later clarified that those claims were false. There was no transportation failure. The death was ruled a suicide. Days later, another death occurred at the same resort, involving a different guest who also fell from a balcony. These 2 incidents alone were enough to spark anxiety because they happened at one of Disney's most iconic hotels, a property directly connected to the Magic Kingdom and the monorail loop. The Contemporary has always symbolized the futuristic optimism of Disney. Seeing it linked to tragedy shook people. Soon after, a guest staying at Fort Wilderness suffered a medical emergency and died at a hospital. Then another guest was found unresponsive at Disney's Pop Century Resort. A 5th death followed at Saratoga Springs. Each case was treated independently by law enforcement. No foul play was reported, no mechanical failure, no evidence of systemic danger, and yet the timing mattered. 5 deaths in a single month at a resort that markets itself on perfection feels alarming even when logic says the incidents are unrelated. To understand why this happened without jumping to conclusions, you have to understand scale. Walt Disney World is not a theme park, it's a city. On busy weeks, it hosts well over 400,000 people per day across its parks, hotels, transportation systems, restaurants, and entertainment districts. Millions of people pass through the property every month. Statistically, medical emergencies, mental health crises, and deaths are inevitable in a population that large. Hospitals see similar patterns every day, but we don't notice them because they aren't wrapped in fantasy branding. Disney is different. When tragedy happens there, it breaks the spell. But numbers don't erase emotion. And this is where Disney's modern reality becomes part of the story. The Disney experience today is far more demanding than it was even 10 years ago. Guests walk miles per day. They navigate heat, crowds, scheduling stress, app-based reservations, constant decision-making, and rising costs. A Disney vacation is no longer a relaxed escape. It's an endurance event disguised as magic. That matters when you consider physical and mental health. Medical professionals have long warned that extreme heat, dehydration, exhaustion, and stress can exacerbate underlying health conditions. Florida's climate alone can be dangerous for older guests or those with heart issues. Add long walking days, limited rest, and the pressure to maximize an expensive trip, and the risk increases. Disney provides medical response teams and emergency services, but prevention becomes harder when guests push themselves beyond their limits because they feel they have to get their money's worth. The mental health aspect is even more complex and uncomfortable to talk about. Theme parks are emotionally intense environments. For some people, they amplify joy. For others, they amplify loneliness, grief, or pressure. Disney trips are often tied to expectations, perfect family moments, nostalgia, healing, or escape from personal struggles. When reality doesn't match that expectation, the emotional crash can be severe. That doesn't make Disney responsible for individual choices, but it does highlight how powerful these environments can be on vulnerable people. Another layer to this story is how corporate silence is interpreted. Disney has not released a single comprehensive statement addressing the cluster of deaths, choosing instead to treat each incident privately and independently. From a legal standpoint, that makes sense. From a public trust standpoint, it creates unease. When a brand built on transparency and storytelling goes quiet during moments of concern, people fill in the blanks themselves, not with facts, but with fear. This is compounded by a broader shift happening at Disney World that longtime fans are already uneasy about. Prices are up, perks are down, planning is more complicated, lines are longer, cast members are stretched thinner, guests feel less taken care of than they once did. When trust erodes in one area, people start questioning everything else. Tragedies that would once have been accepted as unfortunate coincidences now feel symbolic to some fans, not because Disney is unsafe, but because the emotional contract between Disney and its guests feels broken. It's also worth noting that Disney World has faced guest deaths before. Over its decades of operation, there have been ride-related fatalities, transportation accidents, and medical emergencies. Those incidents led to major safety improvements, ride redesigns, and stricter procedures. Statistically, Disney remains one of the safest large-scale entertainment environments in the world. That hasn't changed. What has changed is perception, and perception drives behavior. The clustering of these deaths comes at a time when Disney World attendance is already under pressure. Domestic visitors are cutting back. Families are postponing trips. Some fans openly say they no longer recognize the resort they grew up with. In that environment, even unrelated tragedies take on greater weight. They become part of a larger narrative about whether the magic still exists or whether the system has become too big, too corporate, and too emotionally demanding. For workers, this moment is especially difficult. Cast members are trained to maintain calm, protect guest privacy, and keep the experience moving forward. When deaths occur, they are often the first responders emotionally, even if not medically. They absorb shock quietly while continuing to perform. Several former cast members have said that handling guest emergencies is one of the most emotionally draining parts of the job, especially when staffing levels are lower and expectations remain high. None of this means Disney World is unsafe. It does mean that Disney World is human, and that truth clashes sharply with the image the company has spent decades constructing. When tragedy happens in a place designed to feel unreal, it forces people to confront the reality that no environment, no matter how controlled, can eliminate human vulnerability. The real question isn't whether Disney World is dangerous. It's whether the modern Disney experience leaves enough room for rest, support, and humanity, or whether it pushes guests too hard in pursuit of perfection. As 2025 continues, Disney will likely face pressure to address not just safety, but stress. Not just operations, but emotional well-being, because magic doesn't disappear in one tragic month. It fades when people stop feeling cared for. And for the first time in a long time, many guests are quietly asking whether the happiest place on earth still knows how to do that.